off by reading a little bit from Louse Hay. Really short little, like a treatment, like a sort of spiritual treatment. Hello, Goddess Kwana. Yes, those were my fingers. Those were the knuckles. All right, and it's from her book, You Can Heal Your Life, which is a wonderful book. After the stream, I'll put a link to get it on Amazon. So what I love about it is that in it, she has like these little, almost like, yeah, like treatments. And so you can see it has like this little heart, and then they're really beautiful. So I'm just going to read probably part of it to you. So sort of let yourself sink into this. Okay. So in the infinity of life where I am, all is perfect, whole, and complete. My life is ever new. Each moment of my life is new and fresh and vital. I love that. I use my affirmative thinking to create exactly what I want. This is a new day. I am a new me, which is true because our cells are always turning over, okay? You're different today than yesterday, every moment. So I think differently, I speak differently, I act differently. Others treat me differently. My new world is a reflection of my new thinking. It is a joy and a delight to plant new seeds. I love that. I'm going to read that one again. It is a joy and a delight to plant new seeds. For I know these seeds will become my new experiences. All is well in my world. Isn't that beautiful? And what's funny is that wasn't the one I was going to read, but when I picked up the book, that's the one that was open. So I love that. All is well in my world. And it's You Can Heal Your Life, Louse Hay. I've mentioned it before. I think it's one of her first books. She is the founder of Hay House. She first came on the scene early in the AIDS crisis. She worked with, I think, men in San Francisco. If any of you, some of you were too young, but I mean, of course, AIDS is still awful, but at that time there were no treatments. And so people were like literally shunned and everything. And she formed a support group for the mostly gay men at that time who were HIV positive. And a lot of people wouldn't even work with them, or, this is early on for you young folks. And so that was sort of how she started. Really lovely person, Louse Hay. She did end up founding Hay House. Yeah, very, very sweet. And she just gave them a lot of solace. And, at that very, very early time of AIDS, like just coming out into the world. So anyway, she's a wonderful author. Do you guys know her? Hi, Julie. I'm going to put everybody up on screen. Hey, and Goddess Kwana, hello. Yeah, say hi in the chat. And yeah, are you familiar with this book, You Can Heal Your Life? Actually, it's not really what I was going to talk about, but I wanted to read that to you. So I hope that you enjoyed that. What I do like about the book is these are like sort of like new thought. There's like a little treatment you can read. And then she goes into the chapter. But this is actually what made her famous, not to go totally off topic. I'm glad you're here, but this is interesting. And by the way, I got this book used because it's like a little slightly tattered, but one of the things that she innovated, and she was very much, not about blame at all, but one of the things she realized was she'd like list a problem. Yeah. And then probable cause and a new thought pattern, almost like to condition your mind. And so it was really, really fascinating. I mean, she lists all these different illnesses, and then her sense of what sort of inner state might influence it. I said might, and then she gives you like a new thought, like a conditioning for your mind. Okay. So yes, and I see some folks here who are in the Awaken the Divine Feminine program. I want to mention to you that I think it is closing Wednesday. I don't think I'm going to leave it open all the way till Thursday, but it's beautiful to see some of you that will be in that program here. And so today what I wanted to talk about, let's see. what was my title? I wrote Goddess Spirituality Worldwide. I need to improve my title, y'all. Okay. But I wanted to just share with you, for those of you who may not know, talking a lot about the divine feminine, right? And I wanted to just share with you really short about the divine feminine around the world. So I have African, European, Asian, and South American, and just a little short bit on each. And wanted to share with you about that because it does tie in with my program, Awaken the Divine Feminine. And so yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that sort of goddess spirituality, because I know for some of you that might be new. Is that a new concept for some of you? Now, the program Awaken isn't just about that, but that's part, maybe I'd say 60% of it. Let's see some of your great comments. Okay. Yes. You've never heard of the author? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Louse Hay. She, I think came from like a relatively poor background. She built Hay House, which is a huge publisher. Like they have like 7 offices around the world on it, like, continents. And you've heard of people that her company has published, but she literally, you guys, but this was at the start of the AIDS crisis. So let me give you a little history, because I'm old enough to give you a little history. Like nobody wanted to be anybody AIDS, now we say HIV, but people were just horrified. People didn't even want to go near them. It was just really, really, really tough for the mostly gay men at that time who broke out in the community. And she, like I said, would go, I think she was in San Francisco, and she started having groups for them. And it was, when people were just dying fast. Who's old enough to remember, like back in the day, people just, you had AIDS, you died very, very fast. And she started working with them when nobody else would, just to calm their fears. And just, there was so much. Yeah. So it's, her company is called Hay House. And you have read, I want to say they just, not to go off topic, but hold on. Did they publish, an acquaintance of mine, she was doing, she's doing like specifically African spirituality. And I think it's Hay House that published her book. And I'm because I wasn't going to talk about that right now, but Hay House is a huge publisher, huge publisher. And, she started off like with nothing, and she was willing, people were not even willing to talk to gay men who had AIDS at that time. This is right when it was just starting. So she was one of the first. She brought her, she came from like the New Thought movement, and she was willing to go in and just help them. And this is when people had like, like sores you'd see on them. And it was just really bad. Some of you are too young. You're too young. You don't remember. High glass, half full. So yeah, just read a little treatment from Louse Hay. So she was very brave at that time. She went in, and a lot of the men were just feeling terrible guilt. They were dying of AIDS. It was this new disease. Nobody knew anything. Okay. Like I said, I don't want to go off on this topic, but that's how she started. She was willing to sit and talk with them and be with them and give them spiritual teachings. And yeah. And now Hay House is like a multi-million dollar that she ended up starting. But yeah, Louse Hay, you've read some of her books that she published. You just may not know. So again, I'm just going to say hi to everyone and welcome. I want to say my community is for all. I'm primarily speaking to women. Men, you can listen in if you want. Hi, Goddess Kwana. Hi, Gigi, the Empress. Hello, beautiful. Did I introduce you? Hadn't never heard of her? I mean, she's really a lot of, now going back in the day, let's go back slightly off topic. I would say Reverend Ike, who I mentioned before, when I was coming up in the sort of southern Bronx, not the heart of the South Bronx, but like South-ish Bronx, the adults, I remember Reverend Ike, and he's in that same lineage of positive thought, new thought. I'd say he was one of the first, though, to bring this to the Black community. Who remembers Reverend Ike? Okay, and I was little. I just remember people gathering around to watch him. A lot of more traditional preachers and so on didn't like Reverend Ike. But anyway, he brought a lot of metaphysical to specifically the Black community, and prosperity, kind of a prosperity gospel, all of that. Anyway, okay, not to go off. Let's see. Let me say hi to everybody. Hey, Glass Half Full, I saw you in, I forget whose chat. Where was I? Oh my gosh. I consider her a friend. I haven't met her in person, but she moved from Blacksit Global. She moved to Portugal. She's very, very happy there. And I saw you in her live, Glass Half Full. Hi, Donna. Yes, peace. And Julie says, yes, I've heard of her and listened to one of her books, but you don't remember much. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. She really is like the grandmother, honestly, of the like this movement, positive thought. She actually, guys, maybe this is what I'm supposed to talk about. She overcame cancer, and you're talking maybe 30, 40 years ago. You know what I mean? When it wasn't like, that wasn't common. She did all sorts of different things, some unorthodox things, whatever, but she really feels a lot of it was her. She talks about like mental treatment, just the way Reverend Ike. Okay, and who knows Reverend Ike? Don't leave me out here with nobody said they've heard of Reverend Ike. He was very flamboyant. For those of you who don't know, because my community is very, very diverse. He's a Black preacher, and he was very flamboyant, and he would basically be doing a lot of what we now maybe label New Age or New Thought, prosperity, and hugely popular. Huge. He was huge. Okay, some of you are too young. Donna, yeah, Donna, you remember Reverend Ike? And to be really honest, I don't think anybody's replaced him. I really do, in the sense of specifically speaking. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm trying to think who, specifically in the African American community. I don't know. I mean, he was huge. He was huge, and then I think even in his later years, he branched out. Everybody was coming to him. And I grew up hearing him in the background. So yeah. Is it only Donna? Only Donna remembers Reverend Ike. Okay. All right. Listen, this is what I wanted to share with you while I wait for more people who remember Reverend Ike. So I'm going to put in the chat, my Awaken the Divine Feminine program is running. Yeah, Donna. Okay. You remember. Yeah, you remember. Gigi, you don't remember. Gigi might be too young. But he was extremely influential, people, really. My family was more sort of just middle of the road, church going, well, let's be honest, occasional church going folks. And Reverend Ike, what he did, he took, biblical, but he put in this like prosperity gospel, very inspiring, very uplifting. So yeah, those of you maybe were going back into the, I would say early 80s. Anyway, prosperity gospel. And there now is a channel of his preaching and stuff that you guys might want to check out. You might want to check him out. So what I wanted to share with you guys today, though, as I mentioned, let me see. My title, I wrote Goddess Spirituality Worldwide. I wanted to share a little bit about this. I was doing some research. I'm just going to go through and just throw out some names at this point because I don't want to bog us down. But just so you understand, when I say divine feminine, I really am interested in referring to the historical manifestations throughout the entire world where they were humans. And I've said this before, but this is just very important to me. Yep, Donna says, for the Black community, yep, nobody took up. I know, nobody, I don't think anybody did. Maybe, who's the woman who was friends with Oprah? Then they had a little break, and then, oh gosh, and I can't think of her name. I'm sure she was influenced by Reverend Ike to a degree, but yeah, exactly. He was incredibly inspiring. He was incredibly popular. He would pack, I don't know if he packed stadiums, but like theaters. And he definitely, I think he had a place in Harlem that was his own place that was like lavish, but I was young, so I didn't know. But anyway, he brought that to the Black community. The thoughts that, first of all, he's like money. He was positivity, self-belief. You don't have to be poor and want to suffer, to be. So he'd find, biblical, and he would put it all together. So I grew up hearing him a little bit in the background. I definitely did. Now I'll look back at your comments, but what I want to share is just really brief. And so I'm just going to name some manifestations of the divine feminine, so you know what I'm talking about. So from the African tradition, Oshun, and now forgive me if I pronounce names wrong, okay, was a Yoruba goddess, okay, of love, fertility, beauty, and prosperity. She was associated with the rivers and with sweet waters and the arts. She was revered as a compassionate, nurturing goddess, okay. Isis, going Egyptian, right? Goddess of magic, motherhood, fertility. We're talking for a very, very long time, Isis was, queen of the pantheon in Egypt, okay? Mawu, again, I might be mispronouncing, goddess of the moon, creation, motherhood. She had a twin brother, and I'm probably mispronouncing Lisa. She's revered as compassionate, nurturing deity. So again, around the world, people, there was always, if there was a masculine, and you'll see where I'm getting with this, because I'm really trying to just stream of consciousness this, okay? So forgive me, but throughout the world, the beginning of time, the divine was seen as both a masculine and a feminine. Always, they were like always paired. And that is what I would just want to bring out to you. And that has been removed. And that existed for much longer than the kind of thought of only a masculine God. And that the divinity is like masculine only. Okay. So I'm not trying to be controversial here, but this is just historical. Mawu, moon, Dahomey, goddess of the moon, creation, motherhood, like I mentioned. So that's just 3 from the African tradition. Now, what's wonderful about the African tradition, and I would also say specifically South America, as I'm thinking, is that in those cultures, the divine feminine wasn't erased completely, right? There's still a living tradition, okay? And I am not an expert, so I'm not trying to say I'm an expert, but there's still a living tradition of goddesses. It's not new age. It's like, this is tradition, okay? So, and different traditions. Let's go to Europe. Athena, right? Greek goddess of wisdom, courage, warfare. Interestingly, right? Strength, powerful. Freya, the Norse goddess of love, beauty, fertility, right? It was feminine, right? So it's interesting, the Greek warfare, there was Athena, okay? Brigid, Celtic, okay? Goddess healing, poetry, smithcraft, like smithing, metalworking, fertility. These are just the basics, okay? Jumping, so we jump from Africa, we go to Europe, Asia, okay? Let's go to Asia, Lakshmi. Okay, Hindu tradition, goddess of wealth, prosperity, okay? To this day, like a continuing tradition, okay? Hasn't disappeared in India primarily, and where you find the Indian diaspora, okay? Kuan Yin, right? Chinese goddess, compassion, mercy, healing. She's a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is a goddess, is a bodhisattva. It doesn't have to be a goddess, doesn't have to be in the feminine, is someone who delays their enlightenment for the good of humanity. They see humanity as in pain and suffering, and let's just say there's crime, whatever, bad stuff, people, okay? And they stay behind to help. Okay, this one I'm going to mispronounce in Asia. Amaterasu, Japanese goddess of the sun, and she's revered as the ancestor, like the original ancestor of the imperial family, okay? And we're talking over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The divine feminine it wasn't just a masculine, because people, I mean, I think obviously the origin, if you look at it maybe anthropologically, is like they saw it's men and women, right? Creation. So why, and I know I'm not trying to upset anybody. This is just me sharing. But, there was a male, a masculine, and a feminine together. Okay. Amaterasu. Yeah. Okay, ancestors of the imperial family in Japan. Okay, let's go to South America, and then I'm going to see your questions and stuff because I can't see your questions. I'm just like reading what I had pulled out. South America, Pachamama, Incan goddess of the earth, fertility, agriculture. Now, around the world, the divine feminine is often connected with crops for obvious reasons, productivity, okay, fertility, obviously, right? Pachamama, Inca. Ishel, I think I'm saying her name wrong, a Maya goddess of fertility, medicine, the moon. I don't know, when I say her name, I get a particular feeling. I do believe, guys, in past lives. I'm not one of those, I've had little glimpses where I feel like I've seen past lives. So for some reason, when I just said her name, I got a particular feeling. So yeah, Maya goddess, Ixchel. I'm probably pronouncing her name wrong. Okay, forgive me. Okay. Weaving, childbirth, healing. Okay. And then I'm going to put Yemaya here in South America, of course, because enslaved peoples brought her over from Africa, right? Yemaya, Yoruba goddess of the ocean, motherhood, fertility, protective qualities, the nurturing protective qualities of the sea. I'm just looking at what I had pulled up. And she's revered as a compassionate, powerful deity who provides sustenance, guidance, protection, right? So I put her in South America, of course, but she could go, under at the African goddesses. So the divine feminine. So this is what I'm just talking about, is this concept. Let me check for your questions. Do any of them resonate with you or from your tradition? Let me know. Let me know. So these are, like I said, they're still living traditions. Oh, they're still living traditions of the divine feminine. Okay. And why is this important? Guys, I didn't pre-plan that. Like, why is this important? But I just feel, so I don't have a prepared speech, but I feel that when you look at all creation, there is a duality, right? If you go into Asia in an abstract sense, you look at the yin and the yang, right? It's this opposition coming together, duality coming together for creation. So, yeah, Mahat. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I wasn't trying to name, I wasn't trying to name everyone. No. I think I lost some folks as I was going through my list. So I was just like 3 from a couple of pantheons. So, yes. And then Cuba, and everything went to Cuba too. And then it changed some names and got some Catholicism. Okay. Let's not even go into that. But, so I'm just saying, I think it is important for us women, and my program, Awaken the Divine Feminine, I think it's important to honor that, this awareness of the feminine as not just sort of fallen, creating havoc. Now, there are some divine feminine, there are definitely deities and that also cause, havoc or do bad things. I'm not saying that in different traditions, but again, in many cultures, the divine was seen as masculine and feminine together in a pairing. That's really what I'm saying. Yes, when we were in Cuba, let me put that up. Let me get some water. When I was in Cuba, I was told that Yemaya, the goddess of the ocean, was the goddess I was connected to. Yes, that's beautiful. And I got a little feeling with that. So yeah, Yemaya, I mean, and it's interesting to see, where if you're in Brazil, right, maybe a little different if you're in Cuba, or if you're in Africa, but these traditions have moved throughout the world. So why is this important? I think it's important. Again, I didn't pre-plan this. I think it's important because what I think has been lost with our science, I'm not anti-science. I'm not. I think that things can coexist. And bring wisdom in different ways. Tell me what you think about that. because I just came up with that, right? Wisdom can come in, strands of wisdom come in different ways. Yes, and Mahat. I did a beautiful drawing of Mahat, and I'm probably mispronouncing. And I gave it to a friend, and she loved it. And so I think I only have like a slide. Actually, they don't have slides anymore. I think I just have a reproduction. But I'm controversial in this, in that I believe, so I'm going to go there, that we, and this always throws people off. I apologize if this is going to upset you, but then you have to breathe. Okay. I believe in current times, that, as I said, I believe in past lives. There are a variety of reasons. I won't go off into that, but we've been here. And so I believe that through time, we have incarnated in different, we've looked different, we've been different genders, we've done different types of things, and that it's a process. Some of you may believe that also, or just or wonder about that. But so what I'm saying is that, and I think we come back, we're learning, we're growing. Okay. And so saying that, you might have been born in Japan and maybe you worshiped Amaterasu. I said her name wrong, but okay. Or you might have been born Native American in the West Coast of Canada. And I don't know why I picked that, like somebody that resonates with, right? The West Coast of Canada, and you were native, like a native person 300 years ago, right? And you worshiped you had a different particular religion or spirituality. Okay. So I'm just saying, yeah, that is interesting. Glass half full shares. I feel this is true. The smell and the sound of the ocean revive me. See, that's what I mean. Things like that, little things that are odd in your life, goddess, things that are, you like this particular color that is linked with a particular goddess, or I could say deity, no disrespect meant, but they're different. So every goddess has different colors, and obviously control, is different things associated with her. Childbirth, disease. There are goddesses in different traditions that are like, okay, they're the disease goddesses. Let's keep them over there, kind of thing. So, so yeah, I'm not surprised. In Cuba, I think there's a strong tradition, as many of you I know can resonate with, right? So Africans in Cuba, then there might have been a little morphing, little changing, right, to adapt to, but the goddesses continued, right? The name may have changed, may have mixed with Catholicism or whatever. I'm not an anthropologist, people. So why am I bringing this up? Because it's interesting that Glass Half Full is saying, and that the smell and sound of the ocean just naturally revive her. So I believe we all have a particular lineage. And again, like I said, this isn't only in Africa. I believe that in other places, the goddess might have been basically wiped out sooner. So, you may be less aware of where you come from if you're watching this, right? Maybe let me go back to my notes there. You might be less aware that in your like your ethnicity, that there was a feminine, right? But folks are looking at, again, like I said, many people into Celtic spirituality and goddess Bridget, or Freya from the Norse tradition. Actually I may have stopped before I mentioned them. I don't even remember now. Athena, but Freya, Bridget. I do, and I mentioned, the Asian Ixchel, in the Maya tradition. Something about Ixchel associated with childbirth and healing. And so my lineage is very much about healing and helping people heal. So I think I resonate with I might hear a particular goddess name and that energy, because that's what she brings. So the reason this is important is what I feel is like women were cut off from our sense of power and feeling really connected with the divine in ways that may work for you. Okay. And so I do want to talk about, that's what my program, Awaken the Divine Feminine, I wrote. It's cultivates self-love, goddess spirituality, and deep intuition. Because as I keep saying, right now, the world is clearly going through something, and will continue, actually. And, you know, everybody has their different beliefs. I'm not trying to negate anyone's belief at all. But this is a very, very difficult time. And it may go on for longer than we think. You know, again, I don't know your specific religious background. Probably if you're watching this, you're pretty open. But so the program I'm teaching, which, as I said, is closing. I'm going to close it Wednesday or Thursday. And some of you watching are enrolled. It's open to all women. I do want to limit it to women. As I mentioned, the divine feminine, this goddess spirituality is around the world. It is not exclusive. You know, maybe some people, because it's really extant in Africa specifically and stamped out in some other places. But it was around the world. And that's why I read you all the different goddesses. I mean, I think I took you from Celtic, Norse, Greek, Yoruba, Egyptian, South American, right? Asia, you know, like these are continents, these are vast areas, okay? I just tried to find 3 for each, okay? So yes, it you know, our ancient ancestors definitely saw divinity, and especially the ability to give the birth process, and the kind of the mother. There was always a great mother deity, and there was usually a father deity. Though some say early on it was a feminine deity, feminine. God was seen as female. And then over time, typically it was a masculine and a feminine together. So the reason I think that's important is I just feel like that energy actually is meant to balance the direction we're going that is negative. And I really believe this. Let me know what you think in the chat. I really believe that that imbalance, it's like having only one part of our brain working. It's actually an excellent analogy. I would put the masculine to the left brain. The left side of our brain, okay, I'm going to make this analogy, go with me on this, handles certain things, more mathematical, analytical. It just functions a certain way. And interesting, that duality that I'm talking about, that masculine, feminine, the right side of the brain has a little bit more holistic. It kind of looks at things a little differently. It has, it just has more actually interesting, more things that you would label traditionally as more feminine. And right, what do we have? What do we have, people? We have 2 sides of the brain, right? And then they have to coordinate together. You see, I'm making some connections. Are you with me? Okay, so even our brains have that a division. But then when we're really whole, and you know, now many people are one-sided, right? Might be a scientific genius, but maybe autistic or something, right? Might be like a musical genius. So, but it's still this idea of this duality coming together. And that's what I'm trying to say. Just bring the feminine in, because the positive feminine can help us all to heal. All right. Does that make sense? I want to check in with you guys. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And yeah, I would love to know glass half full. When you were in Cuba, I think it would be a very interesting, wonderful place to visit, because I feel like in some ways they're frozen in time, and that's helped preserve some things. So it'd be beautiful to be able to actually visit. So what do you guys think of what I've shared so far? So I just want to bring up, and I think it'll help women to feel empowered in a positive way, to see that around the world, cultures revere divinity as having 2 sides coming together, obviously, right? The masculine and the feminine, right? The divine feminine. Yes. Oh, wow. Glass half full. I'm going to put up what you wrote, but yeah, in a moment. So my program I just want to share with you why I think that you should be interested in this. I really want it to be a program that leaves you feeling empowered, that you can use for the rest of your life, and especially in this phase, whatever phase you're in your life, goddess. Okay. So I'm going to share a little bit about it, and then I want to come back and see what you guys are sharing. Please share in the chat if this resonates with you. So in this program, Awaken the Divine Feminine, and let me know if you need a partial scholarship, because I think it's important to invest, though. So if you need a partial scholarship, let me know. I'll share my contact there. We'll be doing sacred movement to build the inner fire and purify our belly and our core area. Now, this is where a lot of us, and I'm not trying to be shady, right? This is where weight settles. And that third chakra is our power center. So we'll have some gentle movement to bring some movement and healing to that center, the third chakra, and the sacral as well, the belly and the core area. We'll do the main chakra work in this program in Awaken the Divine Feminine is connect the sacral, which is the womb. Even if you no longer have a womb, right? Energetically, there's still literally, it's almost like in your blueprint, the womb was there. We're going to connect that womb chakra to the heart chakra. Okay, that's something that is very important. I think that as women, sometimes there's a disconnect between the sacral, which is more sort of the sensual, sexual chakra, to the heart chakra, which is more the love and a kind of unconditional love. Let me know what you think about that. We'll create sacred space. You can put together an altar. We'll have guided meditations. We'll do some healing touch, 2 different types of massage to that are very healing, because it's about healing. I should maybe call it healing the divine feminine. So I will teach you 2 different types of self-massage. Okay. We'll have a lot of meditations, earth connection. We'll be doing a little bit with connecting with the earth. Journaling is how you're going to kind of track what's going on. But the main thing is we're going to create sacred space, and I'm going to introduce you to shamanic work. So what is shamanic work? Shamanic work is best described as almost like daydreaming. This is very much what a lot of native religions, spiritual traditions are doing, even if they don't call it shamanism, meaning there's someone who almost goes in like an altered state, usually with drumming. Don't worry, you don't have to drum. I'll have the drumming. Okay. But we'll be just doing, it's almost like you're daydreaming with the drumming as a sort of a background to allow you to go into like a, not a full trance. You're not going to go into a full trance, but to kind of experience a slightly altered state, right? Where, you know, people are taking ayahuasca and whatnot to have that. You can do it without that. Okay. As you know, many cultures around the world, they had substances, whether it's ganja or whatever, cannabis, you know, whatever, to allow people into kind of a relaxed, an open state. Okay. So we're just going to use the drumming, and you can do it without having to take anything. You can do, so we'll do what's called shamanic journeying. And you're going to end up with like a archetype, a goddess archetype that will be for you to help you get intuitive answers. So that's kind of the bulk of it. But so if you have questions, and then I'm going to go back to the screen where I can see your questions. But the point is, it's to heal the feminine. It's to give you a sense of having more grounded personal power, to be more in touch with your sensuality is what I wrote. And also, especially your intuition. As I keep saying, and I'm going to keep saying this, as we go into sort of crazy times, which we're in, we are in that now. I mean, a couple of years ago, but now I'd say we're in crazy times. You want your intuition, your connection to God, goddess, to be very strong. And that comes to you through intuitive knowing. So I think that's very important. And that's really at root what I'm wanting to get you to trust as a woman, to trust your inner knowing and feel that you have a direct way to commune with spirit or another way. Okay. So I'm going to come back now to the screen here. And yeah, let me know if you're still with me, and I'm going to share your comments. So Glass Half Full, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. So, and why is this a positive? This is a positive because you're going to end in my program, Awaken the Divine Feminine, you're going to end up feeling, like I said, more grounded, you're basically going to have like a spiritual toolkit that you can work with for answers, for clarity. So for example, if you're from Ireland, or if you're from, because it's open to all women, or whether you're from Ghana, I'm going to train you in this process of basically discovering an aspect of the divine feminine that you have some connection to. Okay. And then you can work with, and we do what's called shamanic journeying. That just means you're like I said, in a slightly altered state, and you can go for answers and clarity. Okay. So Glass Half Full says, it's amazing. I'm adopted. As an adult, I sent away from my DNA. I learned that most of my DNA is West African, Nigeria specifically. Yes. And Yemaya hails. Exactly. Yes. Yes. Exactly. So you didn't, Glass Half Full, you didn't know that before you were told, or did you already know when you said when you were in Cuba and so that's interesting. You were connected with Yemaya, right? Did you know that by then? I'm really curious, really, really curious. So thank you if you're just joining. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so what I'm saying is that reconnecting with the divine feminine, that phrase comes divine, right? And feminine. It isn't just about, I think some people on YouTube are using it and they're just like, oh, you're the divine feminine. You are a manifestation of the divine feminine. But the word divine in and of itself means something higher than human, right? Like creation. Again, many, many cultures around the world, almost every single one has a feminine, a goddess deities. And see, maybe the rivers are considered feminine, for example. So yes, 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 yes. So one last thing, I think I hadn't put that. The smell and sound of the ocean revive me. Yeah. So we have a lineage. So those of you watching, maybe it's ancestral, obviously, right? So maybe 5 generations back, your people, your ancestors were connected to Bridget. Or, hey, Gigi, are you still here? I want to know, are you resonating with any of this? And Goddess Kwana? And Julie, are you still here? Yeah, let me know. Let me know. So I'm saying in your lineage, in your bloodline, even if not today actively, right? You may identify as this or that, but in your blood lineage going back 500 years, 1,000 years, 1,500 years. I know many of you don't think about that. If you go back 1,500 years, again, you look at your ancestral tree, how vast it would have been. You might have had an ancestor who was in Iceland, or ancestry that would take you to the Alaskan, what we call Alaska now, crossing into like Siberia, over into Russia, for example. There are ways now that you can actually like cross over, or the land is so close. So go back 500 years, 600 years, 800 years. Yeah. What would your ancestry have touched on? All parts of the world. And that's why I'm saying, I think it's important for women, because it gives us I think specifically as women, we're a little more flexible and able to connect in with these. Yeah, hey Julie, you're still there too, and Goddess Kwana, yeah. To connect with deities that might have been in your ancestry, like Glass Half Full. You know, you see how she's resonating, what she confirmed with the science, right? Which is fascinating, right? Yeah, a lot of us would have some Nigerian and certainly West African, sorry guys, cat hair. Then when you look back at your people, right? This was, yeah, that was who was their form of divinity, or who they revered, along with, like I said, the masculine. Okay. So this is, I'm going back basically pre the major religions. Okay. So I know that might be controversial for some of you, probably not if you're watching. Gigi says, yes, I've always have dreams of ancestors. I pretty much have a connection to the ancestry that has been confirmed. Gigi, can you share? Tell us a little bit. I would love to know. Yeah. So, and I just want to share that many times for some of you, this is for someone who may not be watching yet. Some of you, sometimes if you're having mental health issues, especially in the African tradition, I believe this is the thought in some, is that when you are having mental health or emotional issues, it's because, yeah, something with the ancestry and the spirits is not sorted out. Okay. Because here, many of us, most of my audience is in America, we've lost, and I'm talking about everybody here. If you're Irish, you've lost a connection to your ancestral connection, your ancestral spiritual connection. And again, I'm talking 400, 500, 600 years, that maybe it lasted for 2,000 years for your people. And then you were conquered, but here you are now, right? So yeah, Gigi says, yeah, I love that. You have dreams of the ancestors. So sometimes our ancestors can be calling to us, and we'll actually have problems till we listen. Okay. Now, I know that sounds really woo-woo for some of you. I know that sounds really woo-woo. But in many of the world's traditions, that would not be considered woo-woo. We might have problems. Now I'm really kind of channeling this. We might have specific problems that are in our lineage historically. Maybe something happened in your lineage where money became an issue, and it's like a lineage problem. Does that make sense? And you're born and you have that same issue, or an issue with reproduction, and it's a lineage issue. Okay, so now I'm not saying my program is going to go into that for every single person, but what it's going to empower you to do is to basically do a very gentle and easy form of connecting in to spirit and getting answers, getting your answers. Okay, so I'm going to put, it's called Awaken the Divine Feminine. I'm going to put it back in the screen. Yeah. And especially, I think in the African tradition, it's very, there's a very strong connection to, like, okay, the ancestors want to speak to you. But this is not an uncommon thought, in around the world. So, that the ancestors, those who came before you, they have healing for you. They want to support and help you. Okay. That the ancestors aren't like gone, that there's still they still can have an impact in our life. And this is not just in the African tradition. Okay. So that our ancestors want to connect with us, and maybe their religion was different. And so there's a cutoff where you're not connecting back to them. So yeah. Let me show. Yeah, thanks, Glass Half Full, for sharing. Before going to Cuba, I never really investigated these things, but for some reason, when I went there, I wanted to know more about their religion, Santeria. That is when I first learned about Yamaya. Exactly, but that is coming from Africa, and so spread out around the world. Now that is the divine feminine. She is a manifestation of the divine feminine. When I say the divine feminine, that's a more generic way of saying the female aspect of the divine, the female aspect of the divine. Okay. Yes. So I'm just looking at, if you have any comments, try and put them through now. Try and put them through now. So my program, Awaken the Divine Feminine, I'd say about half of it will be working with going into a relaxed state and wanting to connect with an aspect that's probably ancestral in our lineage. And I didn't clearly say that on the page, but that is for our lineage. So yeah, like glass half full, if you were in there, very likely, Yemaya might come through for you. So yeah, the smell and the sound of the ocean revive me. Yeah, it's believed that it's like you're the children of, and you're in this lineage. So it's like a spiritual lineage. So for Awaken the Divine Feminine, you can be from any background. I am reserving it for women. All right. But what we're going to do is we're not going to just study, this tradition. And I know that would probably make it much more popular, but you guys know me, and I feel I'm a mystic, and I truly do believe we're obviously one humanity, and we're like strands on a tree, a unitary tree, but has branches. And so I want to be open to invite women from all different backgrounds, ethnicities. Right now we have a great mix, and to go back to your lineage. I've shared the story that my shamanic teacher, you guys, who's for like 30 years, she's been doing this, probably more actually, probably about 40. And shamanism just means direct connection to spirit. That's what shamanism at its root is, that there's not a mediator necessarily between you, though there can be. That can be the shaman in traditional cultures, or like what we saw in movies, from like the 60s, like the medicine man, right? He's a shaman, like connecting people directly to spirit, right? And so, yeah, question. Right. That's a great question, Glass Half Full. Thank you. That's probably something I didn't mention. Exactly. Well, once in the program, once you connect through the Shamanic Journey, in which I lead you guys on, right? Not just once, we'll go through. And first, well, okay, I won't go into so much detail, but then the idea is that you can continue a relationship with that. Like for you, it's Yemaya, you continue a direct relationship with the goddess. And so thank you for that. And maybe I'm not clear in that even on my page, I don't know. It's that once you are able to connect with, I'm just going to say deity, you then continue on your own. You're able to do shamanic journeying, which again, let me explain what that is. You basically relax. And as I said, in a lot of cultures, it would be you smoke something or you take an herb so you can kind of like open your mind, right? But you do not have to. So in my program, you're just led, and through the drumming, you relax and you sort of do, slightly alter your state. And it's like you're daydreaming is the closest thing to what it will really feel like. But I want to say this to Glass Half Full's question. This is the honest to God truth. With shamanism, you will find out stuff you had no other way of knowing. You had no other way of knowing from like 600 years ago. This has happened. I've seen it happen. Then when you go and like look it up and really, really dig, you find out like the thing you saw in your shamanic journey was an actual tool that your ancestors used. You see what I'm saying? Or they really did live off of this particular animal. That was a big part of their diet. Like stuff that you just did not know because it's so old that comes through with this. So yes, then you do continue it. It's a spiritual practice. And it doesn't have to replace any other practices that you do. Exactly. So that's a great question. So once you connect with the particular form of the goddess. And again, this is open to all women from all backgrounds, all ethnicities. So whatever you know, and you may surprise yourself. You may not be Asian, but end up with Kuan Yin appearing to you. And maybe you had, like, I'm from the Caribbean, and many of you know, of course, African ancestors, but there are a lot of Asians in the Caribbean. So what if you know, you're brown skinned, but you have an ancestor, which is, like I said, not unusual in Jamaica. There's like Asian Jamaicans and there's mixes. And what if a Chinese goddess comes through to you? But it turns out, yeah, your grandpa, I mean, and you knew, like, your grandpa was part Asian and you have a lineage, and that's who wants to come through and work with you. So yeah, this is for spiritual adventurers. Hi, Donna. It is, I don't know why now I'm sorry, I was up in the wrong place. It is for those who are steeped in their spiritual practice and want different ways to continue to grow spiritually. As I said, that's not all we're going to be doing. I'm definitely going to be doing, like I said, we're going to have different practices to strengthen us as women. This is like one aspect of it, awaken the divine feminine. So we'll be doing, like I said, some self-massage, right? We're not just going to be doing the shamanic stuff. We will do some chakra work, right? That's going to be important. We'll do a little bit of movement, but gentle movement. But to, like I said, a lot of us have reproductive issues. So I don't know, it seems like I'm putting many different things together, but it's all as you, making you basically stronger, healthier on a physical, emotional, and mental level. So they're different things. And it is, it's 8 sessions, because the very first time I ran it, Awaken the Divine Feminine I'm talking about, I ran it for 5. That was a test. And I asked the women, because it felt like some of them did need more time. And that's kind of what's called the curse of the expert. I've studied shamanism and other spiritual practices, but the shamanism was like maybe 5 years. So I, in my head, thought people could move quicker. And it turns out they're like, no, 7 or 8 sessions we needed, not just 5. So I was like, okay, because I asked them, I was like, tell me. And so now it is 8 sessions, I believe I set it at. So we'll have a little bit more time. Basically, we're going to connect with our bodies as women. It's supposed to be healing, right? And the reason you would want to connect with any of these goddesses is for healing, whether spiritual, emotional, or physical healing. Yeah. Yeah. Great question. How do you even know what goddess you're connecting with or connected to? Well, so yeah, no, that's a great question. That's what I'm saying. In the program, I teach you how to do, guys, thank you for this, because it's also the curse of the expert. I don't know if you've ever heard that. We've all experienced it, like where the teacher starts talking and you're like, I don't even know what they're saying. It's because you're so sort of steeped in what you're doing, you don't remember like the beginning. Okay, so yes. I lead you in the shamanic journeying. So there's drumming, right? And you get into a relaxed state. And then I kind of teach you how to, it's almost like you're daydreaming is what it's going to feel like. Okay. I should talk more about shamanism on my channel. But that hasn't even, I don't know, hasn't hit the mainstream. I'm always really ahead of myself and ahead of sometimes of where folks are. But so you will basically do what's called a journey. It's called a journey. Again, it's like daydreaming, and a goddess will pop up to you. Now, let's go back to glass half full. She was told, right? She connected with a particular goddess, with Yemaya, right? She was told that. And as she thinks about it, she's realized she's always loved the ocean. The attributes of that goddess made sense to her. It was like it was in the background of her life. Okay. So yes, to your question, we basically do this journeying, it's called, which is like active daydreaming. And who will come to you is often, like I'm saying, when you do the research, you'll find either your ancestors were connected with them, or it completely resonates, even though you've never heard of this goddess before. Does that make sense? Like, you find out, oh, she has to do with metalworking, and you make jewelry, and you've always loved making jewelry. So it's just basically, it's going back to ancient traditions. Again, as I read at the beginning, because you might not have been here, Ishul, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say your name wrong, Ishul Sharon, but all around the world, right? The goddess energy, and particular goddesses represented, like often the river was seen as feminine, had a particular, or a mountain was seen as feminine and had a goddess attached to it. And so, yeah, this is, kind of what we're talking about here, and connecting directly in with probably one of your a lineage goddess that you come to find out you may not even have known, but your ancestors 2,000 years ago were connected with. Like for instance, there are a lot of Asians in the Caribbean. So consider yourself Afro-Caribbean, say, but in your background, there was a great grandpa who was half Asian, which is not unusual, especially, like I said, I'm from Jamaica. A lot of these countries, right? Everybody immigrated there or were brought there, right? And they were enslaved or indentured. And so, yeah, you now are like a deep chocolate brown, but you had a great great grandpa who was part Asian. You're doing this shamanic stuff, and you're led back to a goddess that's Chinese. Okay. So I know that if that might sound weird to some of you, but we're not just talking about, grandpa, we're talking about lineage going back. And the point of that, what is the point of that is, and actually, I don't think I made that clear on my page, is you're going to literally be able to get guidance and support and help through this practice. It's a spiritual practice. So yes, thank you for the question. So you do what's called a journey. It's called a journey, which is like this active daydreaming is what it feels like. And that's what I lead you and teach you how to do. It's not a trance state. You're not in a trance. It's not like that where you're out of it or anything. It feels almost more like daydreaming. So any questions, any comments? So this actually, I'm talking about from my program, Awaken the Divine Feminine, the Sacred Divine Feminine. Like I said, we'll definitely work with the womb, because that's very much the feminine, right? Whether you have a womb or not, we're going to connect the sacral chakra to the heart. So that should be healing. Like say you've had wounding you had abortions, or you had a miscarriage. Yeah, now I'm making it really practical. So thank you. Your question made me get real practical. We're going to do meditations to help heal the inner scarring from maybe, you had an abortion, you had a miscarriage, right? We're going to work also to heal this whole, so we're talking about the feminine, that belly area down to the second chakra, right? So the belly and the core area, we'll do some movement, just simple movement to bring energy there. Some of you might have fibroids. I believe, let's go to that. Many of us have fibroids. A lot of that is dietary, but I also believe it's ancestral pain, rape in the family, things like that. And I know it's getting kind of deep, right? So there's energetically an issue with the reproductive system with the women in your family, for example. So this is the type of thing, if you learn how to do shamanic journeying, you literally may be shown that. Think about how deep that is. So say you have an issue with fibroids, and you're taking my program, and you end up meeting an African goddess. Turns out, yeah, you're an ancestral goddess. And through doing this, it's almost like active daydreaming. You're shown that that this pain in your lineage comes from a brutal rape that happened 5 generations ago. Okay? Does that make sense? You may then get a sense of like, wow, that is the root of our reproductive issues, is this rape that happened 5 generations ago, right? Or someone was married off as a child to like a much older man, and it was just horrible for her. She was like 12 or 13. Like, now I'm channeling. That could be in your lineage and literally be the underlying cause of the reproductive issues. Okay? So this is the type of thing that when you train in this, just like a little intro taste into it, you might be shown, you might see that. So Gigi, are you still here? Gigi, have you registered? Because I think, my love, you are a seer. Just from what I know of you, I think you are a seer, and healing will come for you as you maybe are able to express some of this. So yeah, give me more questions, because Ishwal, I'm just going to use the first part. That was a good question, and it got me to explain more. Okay, I'm going to have some water. So we're talking here about what I wrote, Goddess Spirituality Worldwide. And especially for women, it can be very, very healing. Yeah. So questions. If you're just joining, wow, we were in Cuba, in Santeria. See, yes, right. And it's interesting to see the goddess has morphed, meaning the name changes slightly, the attributes all the way from Africa to South America to the Caribbean. Now, you do not have to, that's why I'm not prescribing a goddess. It isn't a program where we just study different goddesses. Guys, it would be much easier if I taught it that way. But I am an artist, and I really am taking you more into where you discover. So rather than just being like studying different goddesses, you're literally, I'm giving you an introduction to shamanic work. Okay. So yeah. Dreams of ancestors. Yeah. When you're really dreaming of the ancestors, that means they want to work with you. And sometimes they almost bother you until you start to do the work that they want you to do to heal, Gigi. Seriously. So that is something. So who's here with me? Questions, comments? And I definitely need to drink some water, because when you talk, as you talk, you put out vapor, and I don't want to dehydrate. And yeah, it is warm where I am. So my program, it's an 8-week program, which I like. I was thinking about condensing it to a weekend, you guys. Could definitely do it as a weekend. Maybe I'll do that live sometime at a retreat center. But this Awaken the Divine Feminine program that goes into this, that strengthens you as a woman. And it's basically giving you another spiritual practice to get answers, to heal, all of that. So 8 sessions, because things happen over time. Because I thought, God, I could teach this over like one weekend, right? Like long, like it's 8, I think it's 8 hours altogether, the program. Well, no, it's more than 8 hours. I believe it's 10 hours. So I could teach it over a weekend, but because we're working online, you have time to integrate, and things come to you over the 8 weeks. So there's, it's not rushed versus like a weekend. So anyway, questions, comments? Yes, and some of you here are already enrolled. Glass half full, it sounds like it'd be wonderful for you. Are you interested? Because it sounds to me like the goddess is calling you, honestly. Like you've tapped into, Nigeria, right? Yes. Yeah. The Yoruba religion of Nigeria. Yeah. And you didn't know that. And yet it's come. So this can be very healing, folks. Talking to you straight here. If you have financial issues, you have different specific issues, it could be being cut off from your spiritual roots. And again, I'm not just talking about those of African descent. You know, you could be someone who your ancestors, you're Irish, and your ancestors were deeply connected to Bridget, or, you know, and you have lost that connection, and there's wisdom there. So now I'm going kind of deep. There's wisdom there for you, and healing. So say, let's stick with the Irish, for example. Maybe when there was the famine in Ireland, right? You know, your ancestors fled and they came to America, but there's still trauma related to that whole experience. Maybe there was a point for your ancestors where the family died, they starved to death, right? And so there's trauma in your lineage. You're Irish, and there's trauma in your lineage because of that, and you had to leave your land, right? And so it's just, you're kind of reconnecting with like a strand that was broken. Yeah. Yeah. You're reconnecting. So did that clarify for you, Ishuel Sharon? Did that clarify for you? Let me know. Are you still here? I spent a long time answering your question. It was a great question. You know, it can stay superficial, but yeah, how do you keep going? You would actually still keep journeying with that particular goddess. So let me go back to glass half full, because that's a great question, actually. So you would continue journeying, is what it's called, when you basically, as I said, go into this relaxed state and connect an altered state, usually with drumming. That's why you see around the world, right? Pre-organized religion, people drummed. And so that slightly alters your state. It relaxes you. And then how do you keep it going? Yeah, you would still do that. You can lead yourself. And you can also join my community if you have questions, right? So ongoing support, because that is a great question, which I think right now is like $12 a month or $10 a month. And I'm often having a sale. But so you basically continue working with that particular goddess, and this is what I teach in the course. You ask a question, and you basically bring your problems, and you're given like, oh, well, maybe look at this herb, for example. So that's a great question. Let me tease that out a little. Maybe you have a skin condition and you're doing this, you trained with me and you were brought to Yemaya. When you're doing your journey now, the course is over, and you join my community, then you'll have some support, right? Ongoing. You're shown an herb, a plant. You look it up and you kind of have the name. You look it up and you find out that this herb is supposed to be good for skin conditions. You had no way of knowing that. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the benefit of working this way, sort of shamanically. You try it and it heals the skin condition. Or you start making salves, right? And then people want to buy the salves you make. And what had happened is the goddess was opening up a way for you to make money and healing yourself. Okay, that was a great example. Does that make sense? Give me a yes if that makes sense for you. You may start with your own condition, your own problem, and be shown, and this happens. This actually really happens. Hold on, let me hide. Yeah. You'll be shown a plant, or you'll get a name and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. You look it up. Oh, that's good for skin conditions. Or, oh, that helps with lung and with phlegm. And you're like, I don't know where I got that information from, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's how that works. That's how that works. So Awaken the Divine Feminine is about, my program is about healing yourself. And this is part of it. There's still other benefit. And I also want to say, for some of you who feel like, well, what if I don't see, or make a connection? What I'm thinking of doing this round is maybe working with you and see what I get as shamanic work, Yeah. And so basically it's to make women feel stronger, more grounded, as I said. So yeah, let me share. That's a great question. It starts Sunday, June 2nd, glass half full. I promise you'll come out of it feeling stronger, because if you're a spiritual person, it's going to be Sundays from 11 to 12:15 Eastern time. So if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be a little earlier. And then for 8 weeks thereafter. Okay. And that's nice because it gives you time to integrate stuff. And as I said, we're not going to be doing this the whole time. We're first going to, as I mentioned, we'll be doing different things to sort of prepare ourselves, heal our bodies. So we'll do the chakra work, right? We'll be doing some movement all around the idea of the feminine, healing the feminine self. And I wrote on here, creating sacred space, whether you get Sekhmet or Isis or Freya or Mary Magdalene, which you will discover, and then you will do some research on the goddess, which is really easy now with the internet. I mean, before it would have been like, I got to go to the library and they don't have a book. I mean, now you're just going to hit the internet and you'll get information about the goddess that comes to you. We'll do the self-massage, again, to heal and strengthen your body. The body is always associated with the goddess, right? It's as opposed to like spirit, the goddess is in like every tradition is more the earthy, the body is very much connected with the goddess energy. And you will journal and kind of track what's going on for you. Now, the program currently, it's $149. If you need a 2-payment plan, or if you need a partial scholarship, let me put in because the more you're invested, the more you're actually going to do. Okay, I believe that. And also just for the time, the energy that I've put, like the hundreds of hours really practicing myself, and it's bringing together even my learning from yoga, from massage school, all of that. In fact, some of the massage will be acupressure points to strengthen you, because basically awaken the divine feminine. You are the divine feminine. So we want you to be strong and healthy. So it's a course about physical health, mental, and spiritual health, actually. So yes, glass half full. If you're interested, the link is above. If you need like a 2-pay plan, or any of you watching this, or if you, if you're in like really financial distress, you can reach out to me. Let me just put that in the chat. It's assistant, and I will see it at intheflowofmagic.com. But also read the page, which is here. Gives you a lot of information about it, In the Flow of Magic, and it's right on my front page, Awaken the Sacred Divine Feminine Program. Yeah, let's see. Oh, great. Let's see. That's so interesting that you brought up Ireland, because when I pull my goddess cards, I always get, wow. That's what I'm saying, goddess. Yeah. So we gotta get out of this. Here's the problem. This is great. Thank you for sharing this. I'm put it on the screen. She says, that's so interesting. You brought up Ireland, because when I pull my goddess cards, I always get the same goddess, which is Goddess Bridget. I'm Black, though. I do have some Irish ancestry. Yes. And this is where it gets controversial. We have been told over and over, yes, obviously, there was rape involved with enslaved Africans, but there were also, and this is even very specifically in Jamaica, like it's known, like in the beginning, early on, all the people, the poor Irish were looked down upon, and there was intermixing. So I'm just saying, you could have just honest Irish ancestry, not from rape, possibly because there were periods of time where everybody was looked down upon. Okay, they were brought over by, the English, the slaveholders, and you had indentured servants, you had enslaved peoples, you had free men, you had, this is why I get like upset about when folks are like, oh, it was always, yes, on plantations in the US, and certainly, in Caribbean too, but there were also marriages, there were also relationships, because the Irish were very looked down upon, right? It's not like it is today. We're looking through a modern lens. They were just a bunch of poor, downtrodden people of different ethnicities, different mixes. So I'm saying you could have just honest Irish ancestry that did not have to do necessarily with rape. That is absolutely, because they were just all living poor. There was a time when we were all just considered like, ugh, meaning like, there was the overclass, and then there was all these, there were Indians, okay? You all know they're Indians in the Caribbean. You all know this. They're Indians in the Caribbean. A lot of us, like a Trinidadian, Indian heritage, okay? Especially as I'm just thinking of Trinidad, but I'm not an expert on it. So yes, the goddess Bridget could be in your bloodline and be calling to you like, I want to talk to you. I want to help you, because you have ancestors who that was their religion, and Bridget represented certain things, and maybe she wants to connect with you. So I know this might sound weird to some of you, but absolutely, absolutely. The world before now, there was a lot of mixing. Of course, there was a lot of, let's not even get into Asia and the Mongols and how they just raped and pillaged, right? The whole Genghis Khan thing, like how Genghis Khan, like the gene from Genghis Khan, his descendants are like all, they're like all over. So like, that's a case. Like, there are God knows how many now that have some specific gene that shows like Genghis Khan was a distant ancestor, because he conquered huge swath of the world, right? And whatever, back there you didn't say no to a king, especially if he was like pillaging. So, but anyway, like I said, there are many, especially in the Caribbean, there were poor Irish, there were poor Scottish, there were Indians, all mixed together. So yes, we have this really diverse ancestry. So goddess, if you're interested, it definitely sounds to me like you keep being led back there for some reason to goddess Bridget, because some of your ancestors, that was who was the goddess for them. Okay. I know it's really deep, and it's controversial, this, or, we're putting a modern lens on ancient times, when back in the day, at certain different points in different cultures in the Caribbean, certain people were just dumped together because they were considered, like the underclass, right? So yeah, it's very, very possible. Absolutely. So it's fascinating. So Bridget is like calling to you. There's some wisdom because you have ancestors that were connected to her still, right? In the same way, let me give you a great story, you guys. This is my teacher was talking about this. So she's talking about one of her students, a white guy, upper class kind of white guy. It sounded like very preppy, and so she's leading him everything, and they're in a group, and he's doing the journeying, which is what it's called, and she's telling us the story now. And he comes back. It was like an ancestral thing. He comes back and he's like, oh my God. I'm laughing because imagine this guy, this dude, right? He's not ready for this. He saw an African ancestor. Now, and this was way, way back, but he, in his, it was an ancestor that was quite more ancient. And he was just like, whoa, this is what I got. This is what I saw. And the teacher just smiled. My teacher, she always just smiles. She's like, yep. Because she often will know what you're gonna end up seeing. So he's this kind of, I think he was this kind of like, kind of preppy, upper middle class white guy. He's getting into shamanism, and he's like, oh, you're back, and there's this black ancestor, right? I'm laughing because he just didn't expect it. And I forget how the story ended, but then it was like, he's like, well, this is not what I expected. And she's like, yeah, but this is your ancestor that wants to connect with you. Seriously. And I was like, wow. And I think that was how the story ended. And he worked with that ancestor. That was an ancestor of his, right? And that ancestor had wisdom to share with him. It was not a case of him going and grabbing like, oh, no, I'm going to do African spirituality, like from his mind. This was who came forward to him, that was in his bloodline, that's like, well, I'm here to teach you. I'm here. The dude's like, you don't look like I expected you to look, right? So I'm laughing because I love that. I do love that because let's get the politics of our time is so it can shut people down. It definitely can shut people down. And also, let me go back to a serious point on that. Say, especially for those of us who have African ancestry, which, when I even say that, well, how far back do you want to go, right? Then everybody has some African ancestry, right? But just thinking about, oh gosh, I lost the point I was going to make. When you work with, in a way that I'm talking about in my program, you can jump before so a different person may have a Scottish ancestor that was pre-slavery, they didn't have anything to do with, like, you can go back to a healed ancestor, which is more complicated. Like, say, for instance, you come from a family, you're anybody, any racial, any heritage, but your family has alcoholism in it. When you do what I'm teaching, you can say, you know what, I don't want to work with these really, actually, I'm mixing. We're not going to specifically get into ancestors per se in ours. We're working specifically with a goddess, but another way shamanically is to work with specific ancestors and ancestry. But what I am saying with the divine feminine is that you literally may have ancestry that puts you, like, you could be blonde hair, but you have an Indian ancestor, is what I'm saying. So you end up over there with Lakshmi appearing to you, and you're like, whoa, this Indian goddess appeared to me, but I'm Irish. Well, it turns out you actually have, someone in your family who was 1/8 Indian in like 1725, who was raped by a British colonel. And you see what I'm saying? Am I making sense? Anyway, I'm giving you some examples of how complex our world is. And so, yeah. So it's interesting. And that's why we need 8 classes. When I tried to do it with 5, so I'm not going to tell you, oh, here, go there, go there. You're literally going to find this connection yourself. And I hope it isn't too advanced. I mean, this is the second time I'm teaching it. I'm extending it to give folks more time. And I really lead you, like I said, on how to connect. You basically really relax. There's drumming. I'm not drumming. I'm usually use the recording because it's steadier. And I just lead you through this process. It's almost like you're daydreaming. And that's part of it. That's part of it. But as I said, there's other parts where we're strengthening ourselves. And I know it's like controversial, right? In it, like if you're like, oh, if you're Black, but then you got like Goddess Bridget. Well, that's the thing with our polarized politics now. Hi, BB. Our politics, and this is how the overlords are controlling us. I really mean this. They want to make everybody one thing, and they want to pit us against each other. So think about your bloodline, how far back it would go. Do you really believe that nowhere in your bloodline was any other heritage? I'm talking to Black people here, white people, Asian people. I'm talking to everyone. Do you really believe that in your lineage, it didn't splinter off into most of the parts of the world that you just may not even know of? And that's why, like I said, with this white guy, waspy guy, an African ancestor came to him. That ancestor, I don't remember. I don't know if she told us, might have been 2,000 years ago. Right? This is the idea of the shamanic work, is that it transcends time. And I guess I haven't said that clearly. This process it's not bound by time. So it might be, it might be your ancestors from 2,000 years ago, and they were in India. And so they did, Saraswati was the goddess of their tribe, or a version of Saraswati. That's an Indian goddess, right? Many people actually from the Caribbean have Indian and African heritage, especially Indian, African, and some European. So this is open for everyone because, like I said, I'm not prescribing, oh, you have to go find this Irish goddess because you now are Irish, or you're Indian, so this is your, no, you're going to do the process of discovery yourself. So BB, yeah, I'm talking about Awaken the Divine Feminine at my program. I'm teaching it for the second time. I've expanded it to 8 weeks, but it's really fun. It's really fun. The first week we do something so relaxing, you might fall asleep. So it's strengthening your feminine energy, and then readying you to do this, like the spiritual work. So if you're spiritual, if you're open-minded, if you're interested in woo-woo stuff, if you want a method to kind of go and get answers, this can help. Like I gave the example, I'll give an example again. You're having, I won't use a skin condition, but maybe you get colds all the time. You working with the goddess that came to you during my program. Again, I because this is the way I've seen it work for people. You may be shown a plant and you're like Googling, and you find out that this plant indeed, get this, you work with a goddess that is say a Norse goddess, and you see a plant that is like from Sweden, or like that you had no idea that this plant, when you was traditionally used to make a cough syrup. You see what I'm saying? You'll often get information, you guys, with shamanism that you later confirm, but you had no way of knowing. You had no way of knowing, and that's when it gets really deep, is you're like, oh my God, like, did this really come through, this information? So it's very similar to present day, a lot of, I think, African religions, where it's this more direct connection to the divine. But I feel like in the West, we're a little bit more separated from this kind of more earthy connection to spirits and things like that. So yeah. Yeah, so Ishul, Sharon, and other questions? I loved your question. Thank you. Like I said, we all know Black people, we have multiple heritages, again, because of negative or because of positive. There were relationships, like I said, I want to go back to that again, way back in the day, especially when people were all just poor, they were mushed together. Pre the really introduction of racism, especially in America, when if you were Irish, you were looked down upon, people just, it wasn't as much racial as class. And then things became solidified, right? Because that served, the overlords, right? And those of you who look back, you can look this up, and it just makes sense. To divide people then started like separating people out, because then you could get control better. But especially initially, and especially I believe in the Caribbean, that whole area coming through, again, you had Chinese, right? You had Asians coming over, indentured, whatever, brought over, worked their way out of it. You had enslaved Africans, maybe you had some free Africans, merchants. You had people fleeing famine. So this was like a melting pot. The Caribbean really was a melting pot. And so many of us that have that heritage, it isn't always through like some brutality. There may have been as well, but there were intermarriages, interrelationships. And as I said, if we go back, we all touch on, I believe, all parts of the world, or like almost all, right? What if you had, again, very common in Jamaica, there are a lot of Chinese, right? Now, a couple of generations down, you just have like kind of, sort of slightly slanted eyes, but your great grandpa was Chinese. Okay, but you don't know anymore. Nobody talks about it, right? So this kind of it would undo a lot of the racism, to really look back thousands of years. But the specific American brand of racism needs to keep us all feeling like we're pure this or pure that. I mean, I know you guys have, when someone who appears white, blonde hair, very light eyes or whatever, and they find out their great grandmother was half, half Cherokee, half African. Okay, so you can't, my thing, this has always been what's bothered me. Your current appearance doesn't necessarily tell you your ancestry clearly. And so, and it doesn't tell you how that ancestry necessarily came about. As I said, there were different types of people were looked down upon, 1800s, 1700s. They were all just trying to survive. You might have some heritage that came from that period, especially, or before. So anyway, if you're interested in my program, I'm going to close enrollment, I believe, Wednesday or Thursday. It is on my website, intheflowofmagic.com. And yeah, it's really for spiritual people. If you're a spiritual woman, you want to learn and grow and get the depth of it. The main thing I say about it, Awaken the Divine Feminine, is that we're going to cultivate self-love, goddess spirituality, and deepen our intuition. And so I didn't tie that together. The intuition is coming through the shamanic work, where, like I said, you get shown this particular herb that will heal your rash, or that you've had forever, or you get a sense of why all the women in the family have fibroids. Like it's maybe there was a rape in the 18 something that was so brutalized that all the women in the lineage, have these particular issues. So it's pretty deep. I don't know if I'm explaining it well, but yeah, check it out. Check it out on my website. I would love to have you in. If there are any questions before I go, are there any questions? Gigi or Goddess Kwana? Are there glass half full? Kelly, 85. Donna. Yeah, I like that, Donna. Yeah. She says, nope, for the Black community, nobody took up the holistic Black torch. Yeah. Nobody really replaced Reverend Ike. He really was a pioneer. He was a pioneer. Let's see. He was a pioneer for sure. Yeah, Cuba is interesting in how it really is a melting pot. It brings so many people together. The Caribbean islands also very, very much, right? Really bring people together from around the world, all together. So yes. So again, I put my email in. I'm going to put it up. If you have a question or if you need a partial scholarship, write to me at assistant@intheflowofmagic.com. But check out the page, see if it calls to you. Gigi, same thing. Donna, let me put. It's basically a spiritual program. It's going to give you some skills that you'll have also for the rest of your life. Very, very much. And yeah, some of it you could just look up, but you don't have what's integrated. You don't have integrated knowledge. You don't have the guidance of a teacher, me. You don't have the guidance of when to do this, when not to do this, so, and you don't have the community. I know a lot of you are looking for community. Oh, yes, it will be recorded. Thank you for asking good questions. Of course, yes. And it will be recorded. I ask that you try not to miss more than 2, because it's different watching the recording when we're in real time together. Yeah, Julie, you're welcome. When we're in real time together, it's different. You really feel that support. But yes, it's recorded, and then that's what the class. It's on Thinkific. So I've invested in that. That's where the course is put, but it's taught live. So then the recording, anything you need, if there's an article or anything, I'll put it there, and you have a private login. And yeah, you can access it there through Thinkific. But when you sign up, you get that info. You just have a login, and it's like a course page, but it's the live, because I'll be teaching you live. So you're not also on your own. So thank you for asking that. It's a lot of these courses, online courses, are all pre-done, and I'm not doing that. I may do that in the future, but you're just kind of on your own, guys. You're reading, and then you're like, you watch videos, but you're kind of left alone. I may transition the course to that, but always with a support element so we can get together live. But right now it's taught live, like this, except we can see each other, and it's private, obviously. And then you have that recording, and I'll give you like practices you're going to do, or like, this is your homework. But again, it's if you want to develop your intuition, if you want to have a way where you can tune into your intuition through this particular type of spirituality. Sorry, guys, I was watching my neighbor. He's loading up his car to go like some gardening stuff in his car, and it's like right like over where you guys like the screen. Julie, yeah, you're welcome. And so, yeah, this time, like I said, I've expanded it. That's why it is also more. Before, I was just testing it, and it was 5 sessions, and the goddesses, definitely some of them needed more time. So that's why it's 8 now. So trust me, you will, the 8 sessions is nice, and you don't feel rushed. Yeah, if you're interested in spirituality and the goddess energy, then this is great for you. And yeah, you don't have to limit yourself. Like Ishul Sharon, I don't know if I said your name right, but it's not like I said, someone who may be Irish ancestry, they may be led to a South American goddess because they didn't know that their great grandmother was half Mexican, for instance, and it's like, whoa. And then this opens up a whole world. So don't feel embarrassed. I just got this, like, oh, well, I got this goddess from this part of the world and I'm not that. Like, if you're Japanese and you take my program and you end up with a goddess from Ireland, come to find out, like, your great grandmother was part Irish because she was a missionary in Japan, say. I just made that up, right? She was a missionary in Japan, and there was a whole scandal, so nobody talks about it in the family, but you actually, you have this heritage it's really deep. So yeah, it will be recorded. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, this is new to me. Yeah. It's very interesting. And like I said, it's seeing ourselves reflecting as the goddess. So we do spend time strengthening our bodies, working with our chakras. And only once we do that a little bit, then we go into the journeying to see the specific goddess that will help us. Okay. So anyway, it's going to close either Wednesday or Thursday. I'm recording this on the 26th of May. I put my email there if you need a partial scholarship, assistant in theflowofmagic.com. It is 8 weeks. It's a lot of work for me, and I'm also paying for the tech. So if you only unless you really cannot afford it and you need a partial scholarship, then you can reach out to me there. But it's the second time I'm running it, and there's some testimonials. And there are going to be even more testimonials because I'm going to make it longer. So for some of the women, the only problem was it was hard, a little bit tricky for them to do the journeying and let go of their thinking mind and get into more of a stream of consciousness type space. And so if you took it before, any of you watching who took it the first round when it was only 5, you're welcome to retake it. Let me know if you have any trouble logging in because I had to adjust something. But if you took it before, you can definitely take it again now that I've expanded it to, instead of 5, to be 8. Okay. And I'm going to email everybody who took it before so they know. So I'm going to close here. Let's just do a little brief centering. And just tune in to yourself. Feel your feet. Sit up nice and tall. Feel your whole body. Breathe. Let's breathe together. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And then sit up taller. Exhale through your mouth. This might have been a lot of new information, but some of you watching have more an extensive spiritual background. If you have any questions, put them below. Once I stop the live, just put them in the comments below. Nice deep breath in. Let's open the arms out. My palms are facing up. Bring them together over your head. Inhale. Touch your palms together. Exhale. Breathing into your own divinity, your own sacred self, your own inner wise woman. I like that. Tune into, my thumbs are touching the breastbone, over the heart chakra. Just feel your feet. Feel connected in. Feel from the top of your head and see if you feel any tingling at the crown of your head, connecting into spirit through the crown chakra, connecting also to your ancestors, allies. Perhaps you'll get guidance on whether this is the right thing for you. So we're opening, we're aware of the crown of our head, we're opening for wisdom. And then feel that you breathe down, you travel down your spine to the tailbone, and we feel grounded, we feel rooted in our bodies. Travel down, feel your toes, feel your feet. Connect to Mother Earth through your feet. Just feel your whole body as we take a couple of breaths together. Inhale. The light within me honors that light, that divinity, the divine self within you. Have a beautiful and blessed week. And remember, registration is closing either Wednesday or Thursday. Not quite sure yet. It will be, they'll probably close at midnight. Yeah, and you're welcome, glass half full. And yeah, reach out to me if this calls to you. And also, if you have any questions, yes, you can reach out to me at assistant@intheflowofmagic.com, and that will get to me. Thank you. Stay blissed and blessed. Bye-bye.